Hello programmers! I have a C program that says hello to you 5 times by going through a for loop from I is equal to 0 till I is no longer less than 5. So we end up getting 5 hellos there. Now, this is kind of a trivial example, but let's say that is such an important block of code that I might want to rerun it many times during my program, and other people might want to reuse this and put it as something that they do in their programs. So in real life, this is not something that would be used over and over and over necessarily, but for my example, I'm going to try to figure out a better way to call this more than once instead of just copying and pasting this various places in the code. So one way to do that is to turn this into a function. I'm going to just cut all that out temporarily and put it above main. And main actually is a function. It's a function called main that has a return type of an int where we're returning 0, and there's nothing we're passing into that function. So following that template for making a function, I could say my return type is int or float or char, but if my return type, if there is nothing that needs to be returned, I can just say void. And then I'll do the name of the function. So my function is going to be say hello because that's basically what it's doing. And then I'm going to paste all that code in there. So from here I have my, I have defined everything about the function, what the function does, and I need to still call the function. If I run this right now, it's not going to give any errors, but there's also nothing that's going to print. So I've done the important step of doing the function definition, but what I've missed is actually calling the function. And you'll just type in the name of the function, and if you need to pass anything into that function, you'll have that inside the parentheses. Now if I run it, I will get the say hello 5 times. So that's an example of putting a function above main. As I said, there's parentheses where you can pass something into the function. So let's do an example with that. Let's say that you can pass in an integer, and whatever you pass in will be used. Instead of the number 5 hard-coded, we can print hello that many times. So for instance, if someone says, hey, say hello 3, well, you would run that and see 3 times say hello. If somebody puts 2, you run that, and what's happening is the value 2 is getting copied into the variable x inside of our function. We go through that for loop 2 times. And you don't have to have a hard-coded value. You could have a variable. Let's do y is equal to 4 and pass y into that function, and we can run that, and it'll do say hello or print hello 4 times. So the variable name choice is not important. They're in different namespaces. As far as the function's concerned, the variable's name is x. As far as main's concerned, which is another function, then the variable's name is y, and it's okay that those don't match. All right, so that's an example of passing one thing into the function. We could pass 2 things into the function. What if we were also going to pass, I'm going to do a float. We'll pass a float into the function, and we'll say float up here, and I've already used x, I've already used y, so I'm going to choose z as the next data type. So instead of printing hello, I'm going to print whatever the second thing that they passed into the function is, and I'll print that the number of times, x number of times. I run this and I get my approximation of pi 1, 2, 3, 4 times because I specified that I wanted it to go through the loop 4 times. And if I don't want that many decimal places, I can use the period 2 and say, well, I really only want 2 things after the decimal point. All right, so that's a function where you pass in 1 thing or 2 things, and putting it above main makes your job easier because you've defined what that function is before you actually try to use it. But a more common thing you're going to see is that people want to see main as the first thing in a C program because execution starts in main, and that just makes sense. So they'll end up putting the function below main, which is good. That's a good practice. But when you try to run this as is, you'll either get a warning or a compile error saying, well, we got to this line say hello, but we don't know what that means. So you have to add, and you can just copy and paste from the function header that first line of the function is the function header, and you can add a function prototype. And another name for that is a function definition. So you're defining ahead of time so the compiler knows there will be a function called say hello. It doesn't return anything, but it does take an integer and a float. And now when I run this, I've gotten rid of that compile warning, and it works just fine. You could also put a function in another file, but I'm going to save that for a different video.